the question here, I think, is what should have Premier Danielle Smith done in response as Alberta's premier to being asked about chemtrails. But here's basically her answer. It's about a minute long.
The best I have been able to do is talk to the woman who is responsible for controlling the airspace. And she says no one is allowed to go up and spray anything in the air. We have she's told me, the other person told me that if anyone is doing it, it's the U.S. Department of Defense. And, I have some limitations in what I can do in my job. I don't know that I would have much power if that is the case, if the U.S. Department of Defense is spraying us. So I will do what I can to investigate, but everywhere I have gone, I have found no evidence that there's any private sector company involved. My environment department's not involved. My airports tell me that they have a record of every single plane that goes up. So I'm kind of dead-ended here. If you have some special lead that you want to give me afterwards, please let me know and I'll track it down.
All right, so that's Alberta's premier basically says that, and I will say this: like she answered, she preserved the dignity of the person who asked the question. I'm trying to find silver linings here.
No, but I think you're right, and
she wasn't like, come on,
no,
give me a fucking break.
But the premier is in here all the time. She's polite, she's well mannered, she's very smart. But she knows what she's doing. And I get that. When I saw the clip as well, I thought, okay, you can't just say you're a fucking moron, chemtrails don't exist. So she was trying to do that. What I didn't like is her alluding to the fact that, the U.S. government is responsible for this if it exists, and giving it any sort of legitimacy there.
Yeah.
Just kind of it rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah. So Sylvia says, well, what about you just say there's no such thing? Travis says she could have just said, next question. Can we play? Is it possible? Can we play like the first 10 seconds again?
Sure.
And I want you to, audience, to listen to something. And so here's the deal. As soon as she basically kind of says, like, I've been told that there's no such thing, I want you to listen to the audience. Now, there's maybe just be a few people, but listen to the audience response. Here it is again.
The best I have been able to do is talk to the woman who is responsible for controlling the airspace. And she says no one is allowed to go up and spray anything in the air. We have she's told me, the other person told me that
So there you can hear, like, I know you can't hear it well, but there's audible booing and, oh, come on, like,
Yeah. In other words, people are not impressed that the early part of the answer indicates that this is not a thing.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's not a thing, okay?
Not a thing.
This is not a thing. Now, I know that we're going to get some questions from people on how much money we're receiving from Justin Trudeau's Liberal government to deny that chemtrails are happening.
Believe me, I love conspiracy theories as much as the next guy. I would love to see, pictures of, politicians drinking blood out of babies' necks at Camp David. I would love for some of this to come to light. But the bottom line is, in this day and age with cameras and cell phones and just email tracking and everything, there will be no way to carry out a systematic spraying of people across miles and miles over different continents without somebody snapping a pic of the chemicals being made, of the trigger in the airplane that they use to deploy it, of schedules of the airline pilots who have to go up and do these.
You're giving
these
people
flyovers.
ideas, man.
I'm just saying there'd be one piece of evidence out there, and I have seen a few things that are clearly Photoshop doctored, where they have chemtrail button or whatever on a plane. But come on, this would take. It's the same thing when people say, the vaccines were a big conspiracy. This was international. There would be evidence. There would be people who spill the beans, and nobody has.
Ms. B in the chat says it is super worrisome that folks are totally uninformed on things like clouds and weather and standard Earth science. Tracy says, what about if she would have said, I have no comment, folks? I don't think that no comment works, as a matter of fact. No comment is even worse.
Yeah, it's even worse.
And then here's an interesting comment, and I had a friend ask me this yesterday. Doobie says she's not insane, talking about the premier. She's purposefully manipulating people who are insane. Now, here's a question as well, and the question being, like, does Alberta's premier believe that chemtrails are an actual possibility, right? Does she actually believe that? Or does she know for a fact they're not, but she's willing to entertain the idea that they are to score political points. And if that's like, which is worse? That's the question, is which is worse? Now, I wonder how differently the answer may have gone had this been after the first week of November, where Alberta's premier is facing her leadership review at the United Conservative Party's annual general meeting in Red Deer. As we've discussed on the show in recent past, and as is obvious, more Alberta premiers meet their maker, meet the end of their political career at the hands of their own party than they do at the hands of the general electorate, right? We know that, and we've seen that in past. When an Alberta premier falls out of favor with the membership of their political party, they're toast. Stick a fork in them, they're done. And obviously, she believes that her base is one that has not written off the idea of chemtrails.
No, some of them believe this stuff.
Right? Some of them do believe it. I will also guarantee you that there are many Danielle Smith supporters that definitely do not believe in chemtrails and that probably feel like they're being looped in to what might be perceived as the loony bin.
Yeah.
Right? People that believe in strong conservative leadership, people that believe in small government, not that she has a small government, people that believe in the principles of freedom and land steward, landowner rights and all these types of things, right? Parental rights and education, business-friendly policies, low taxes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Still waiting on the tax cuts, but that have no interest and no desire to start talking about things like chemtrails. And I think that's where she walks a dangerous line. Now, I would say she may have been put on the spot here. I would also suggest that any premier, in particular conservative premier, should probably expect some questions like this at a town hall and should have a strategic position in place where you can answer a question that does not demean or embarrass the person that's asking that question, that does not alienate, that does not, you got to think of who's showing up to town halls and AGMs. It is your most ardent supporters. Right?
Sure.
These are the people that would absolutely, they donate to the party, they knock on the doors, they volunteer, and they expect to be represented.
Sure.
They expect to be rewarded for that loyalty. And I think she's in a tough spot. But in my mind, this needs to be an easy decision. And then you're also talking about the reputation of the province. And it has made national news and probably international news. This is the type of thing that people love to poke fun at.
Sure.
When you're speaking on behalf of or representing the province of Alberta and entertaining the idea of chemtrails, it's a dangerous move. I think she was trying to let them down easy, though.
Yeah,
right?
I know.
She's like, I've talked to
like
the
you're
people
talking
at the
to a kid,
airports.
right? Yeah, it's like you don't want to. I get it. Like it's if someone has a belief and you want to explain to them that maybe this isn't real, but at the same time you want to give a little bit of legitimacy to their question. I think she did it right. What I didn't like, again, and I'll say it, is how she kind of passed the buck to, if this is happening, it's the U.S. government, it's a U.S. conspiracy.
The Department of Defense, she says.
The U.S. Department of Defense is trying to kill Canadians or give them cancer for what, And it's just, I was obsessed with this stuff in the early 2000s, Ryan. I can't tell you how much I was looking into chemtrails and believing it. And I just looked so much.
Really? You did used to believe in it?
Of course. When I was in my early 20s, man, I was obsessed with conspiracy theories in general. But then, the internet came of age, and now it's really vast. And not only that, monitoring, cameras, everything, like they just what we know about how things come out into the public knowledge, how people get called on things, how people get charged with stuff, how conspiracies come to light and things finally come out into the public sphere. It's too vast. Somebody by now who has gotten older, because, a lot of these people say they started spraying chemtrails in the 50s. Well, a guy who's like 70 or 80 or 90 years old who may have been doing that now, I mean, somebody probably has felt bad about it by now and would have spilled the beans. But we know the majority of this stuff is just, it's aircraft vapor. It's just normal stuff coming off of airplanes. And, there's some people in the chat saying right now, I have pictures. Oh, do you? Yeah. Send them to us because we'd love to have a look.
I mean, I think Horse Lake Ranch is bang on here when they say she was just, Premier was just showing respect for an Alberta resident.
She was trying to do that, yeah.
And I think Horse Lake Ranch is correct. Says name calling, being ignorant will get you treated like Trudeau.
For sure.
And by the way, Horse Lake says, no, I do not believe in chemtrails. I wanted to get that on the record. accurate, to be fair.
But I know everyone wants her to say, you're an idiot. Chemtrails don't exist. That's not how you answer a question, right? As a leader. I get it.
No, 100%. And I do think it's like a tough spot. You're walking a tough line. And maybe that's the thing with so-called big tent political parties, right? I mean, I try to think of like what the equivalent might be for an NDP premier or for a premier representing a political party that's more on the left. They may have similar challenges. I'm sure they do have similar challenges with, like, you have kind of like the mainstream base of your party, which are the people that you might describe in Alberta. Boy, am I going to wade into this, but I think kind of the mainstream NDP supporter these days would have been, sort of potentially described as a small p, small c progressive conservative in past. Some of you may puke at that notion. You may write in and let us know you never voted for the PCs. You've always voted for the NDP, and that's great as well. That's Naheed Nenshi's job right now, right? Is to try to build a bigger tent than Danielle Smith. But on the left, you'd have some of those similar questions. I don't know, maybe driven so much by conspiracy theories, but by people calling for things like leaving all the rest of the oil in the ground, or land back, or shutting, those types of things, where politically the comment that a leader would make would send huge reverberations through the province and across the country.
Of course,
right? If a premier were to go on the record and say something like, maybe it is time to shut down the Alberta oil sands, number one, you'd never get elected. But number two, you can imagine what that might do to industry.
Sure.
Now, I'm not comparing, climate change in the oil sands to chemtrails.
No.
But I'm just saying, like, a political leader of a party that's attempting to draw in people from all walks of life, people from all sorts of belief systems, people of all levels of intelligence, pardon me, but I wanted to say it, is going to face challenges like this. And I think that it's a tough one for her. Kathy says that she just saw a bumper sticker that says everything is a conspiracy theory when you don't know how anything works.